In the days leading up to Russia's larger invasion of Ukraine on the night of February 23rd, it wasn't clear whether Ukraine's small force of Turkish-made TB2 drones would even survive the first volley of Russian missiles. Almost a month later, it's clear that the TB2s not only survived, but also quickly flew into action. Ukraine's killer drone fleet is arguably its most potent force today. The Ukrainian Air Force and Navy TB2s have recently dismantled large swaths of Russia's frontline air defense network and are now relentlessly smashing Russian tanks and supply trucks. With credible reports that Turkey has sent fresh shipments of drones, KYIV'S drone campaign could be just getting started. In 2020, Azerbaijan's small fleet of TB2s played a key role in the country's victory over Armenia in a brief but bloody territorial war. Drone history may be repeating itself in Ukraine's much larger conflict. Ukraine will receive its first TB2 in July 2021. By February of this year, the Navy and Air Force were said to have around 20 of the 40-foot-long, 1,400-pound propeller-driven drones armed with 14-pound laser-guided smart micro-munition missiles known as MAM in Turkish. The TB2s, as well as their ground stations and operators, were unsure whether they would survive the airstrikes and missile barrages that preceded the Russian ground offensive. They did, however. In fact, it appears that the drone force suffered no major losses as it dispersed from its permanent bases in southern Ukraine, such as Mykolaiv, to smaller facilities likely concentrated in the country's west. It took a few days for the TB2 operators to set up their equipment and prepare their drones for operations from remote locations, which could include little-used civilian airstrips. When they did, the drones launched an ever-expanding aerial assault. By March 20th, foreign observers had confirmed nearly 60 tanks, air defense systems, helicopters, supply trucks, and trains that had been hit by TB2 strikes via photos and videos. In reality, the actual number of drone kills is almost certainly much higher. We don't know the true figure because Ukraine doesn't want us to know where and how frequently its drones strike. In order to draw as little attention to its operation as possible, very little footage of TB2 strikes over Ukraine has been released. Analysts at ORIONS blog, a leading source of open-source intelligence, noted, the drone campaign has been phased in. First, the TB2s targeted the short-range air defense systems that shielded Russian tank formations and supplied convoys. No fewer than 10 SAM launchers, including Buks, Taurs, and a Pantsir, have been linked by the drones. Once free of Russian air defenses, the Ukrainians began deploying their TB2s for their other two critical tasks, reconnaissance and close air support, wrote Tom Cooper, a Russian military expert. Russian tanks and supply trucks are easy prey after being stripped off of their air defenses. They have mauled many Russian armored formations in the Kiev area. In the south, they have directed massive and precise artillery barrages on the Kherson airport and Russian units besieging Mykolaiv. TB2s also lobbied MAMs at several field headquarters. The impact on Russians have been enormous. TB2s are also causing Russian nerves to fray, Cooper wrote. We've seen several videos of entire Russian battalions turning around and fleeing after only a few vehicles were destroyed by TB2s. There don't appear to be any significant restrictions on where the TB2s can strike within the Ukraine war zone. Kiev has released footage of drone strikes as far south as Kherson and as far north as the Kiev suburbs. The distance the drones are flying suggests that Turkey provided Ukraine with the most recent version of the TB2, complete with satellite communications capability and access to Turksat satellites. Line-of-sight radio, on the other hand, can only take a drone out to about 100 miles. Russia's longer-range SAMs, the S-300s and the S-400s, are still operational. For a variety of reasons, they are powerless to stop the TB2s. For one thing, it appears that the TB2 operators are flying their drones at a low altitude, below the horizon of long-range radars, until it's time to attack. Of course, low flight prevents widespread surveillance. However, even when flying high, the TB2 usually appears to avoid detection. This is understandable. Because of its small size and low horsepower, the TB2 is quiet, does not overheat infrared sensors, and is difficult to detect for many radar operators. It's a stealth warplane in its own right. It also helps to fly mostly at night. The same stealth characteristics that protect the drone from air defenses allow it to loiter undetected over a stretch of highway for 24 hours at a time, slightly waiting for the Russians to roll by. Of course, the TB2 is not impenetrable. However, unlike a 12-ton MiG-29 and its pilot, the drone is easily replaceable. The Russians claim to have shot down numerous TB2s, but photographic evidence shows only one wrecked drone. In any case, Ukraine clearly still has the majority of the TB2s it had at the start of the war, as well as any additional airframes it received from Turkey in recent weeks. The stable or even growing drone force, combined with the continued deterioration of Russian air defenses, could mean that Ukraine's drone campaign will escalate in the coming weeks. Azerbaijan's 10 or so TB2s destroyed 567 Armenian tanks and other vehicles in just 44 days in late 2020. It had the potential to be a game-changer in a winning campaign. Ukraine has a larger number of TB2s and has devised highly effective tactics for them. The uncertainty that hung over Kyiv's fledgling drone force on the eve of the Russian attack has vanished. The TB2 is a terrifying weapon, and it's wreaking havoc in the Russian army in Ukraine in the hands of skilled and creative operators. Ukraine's Bayraktar TB2 drones, which fire tiny guided missiles, have wreaked havoc on Russian forces in the country. The Russians are also flying armed, unmanned aerial vehicles over Ukraine and killing people. However, there is a scale difference, possibly a significant one. The Ukrainian Air Force and Navy are likely capable of keeping TB2s in the air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On the other hand, Russian forces are flying a few Orion drones sorties over Ukraine, according to Samuel Bendit, a Russian military expert at the Center for a New American Security in Washington, D.C. The videos and photos of Russian drones and their victims that have circulated on social media in recent weeks are proof. Several drone video feeds depicting successful strikes on Ukrainian vehicles have been released by the Kremlin. But only a few. There's a lot more evidence of Ukrainian drone strikes. The ORIONS blog analysts have documented around 60 kills by TB2s, but only 6 by ORIONS. Simultaneously, photographic evidence suggests that the Ukrainians have shot down at least one of Russia's killer drones. Yes, Russia has shot down at least 3 TB2s, but Ukraine can afford to lose more drones. The Turkish-built TB2 is a 1,400-pound propeller-driven unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAV, with a 39-foot wingspan, a sensor gimbal with a laser designator, and underwing pylons for 14-pound MAM missiles. A TB2 can patrol for 24 hours, tracking enemy forces, designating targets for laser-guided artillery shells, and plinking tanks and other vehicles with its own munitions via satellite or line-of-sight radio. The contrast Orion is the closest Russian equivalent. The 1-ton propeller-driven Orion, measuring 50 feet from wingtip to wingtip, has roughly the same sensors as a TB2 and coordinate-guided missiles, similar to the MAM, but the first generation of the drone lacks satellite communications. That means a first-generation Orion can't travel more than a few hundred miles from its operators. Although newer Orions have SATCOM, it's unclear whether KRONSTADT has delivered any of these upgraded airframes. The Russians have not been deterred from deploying Orions in Ukraine despite the potential range limitations. Videos show Orions destroying at least 3 Ukrainian vehicles in separate attacks beginning in mid-March. The Ukrainians then retaliated. On Friday, photos on social media clearly show the wreckage of an Orion. According to Bendit, losing even one of the drones is significant, as Russia's entire Orion fleet reportedly numbered only 30 or so airframes prior to this loss. True, Ukraine had only 20 TB2s at the start of the current conflict. However, Kyiv has continued to receive new airframes, and Bayraktar has no trouble maintaining production. On the other hand, KRONSTADT may struggle to meet Russian demand for new Orions due to Russia's long-standing issue sourcing high-tech components. New Western sanctions are likely to exacerbate the shortages. So yes, there are 2 separate and competing drone campaigns taking place over Ukraine. However, Kyiv is sustainable. Russia, on the other hand, well, not so much. And that's all we've got for today. Thank you for your consideration. If you like this video, then you should watch the other video on the screen right now to find out why the military drone market is exploding. Please like, subscribe to, and follow our channel for more great content and up-to-date information.